Welcome to The Way Home with Laura Smith, the show that brings you wonderful guests, helpful advice, and uplifting stories. The Way Home. Live inspired. Here's your host, Laura Smith.
Well, some people's lives are so regular, normal, mundane, and beautiful just from start to finish, and they go on to the great beyond, having lived just a nice, calm life. Other people, however, have lives that are so much more like a movie that it's hard to even wrap your head around whether or not it can all be true. But it is in the case of Georgine Summers. That's right. She is a transformational coach. She is an author of many, many books on everything from relationships to just her life story. Again, so incredible that you are going to ask yourself several times as she's talking today, can this all be real? But it is, and she's right here. Georgine, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to be talking about your book, Angels in Sin. Thanks so much.
Yes. Hi, Laura. So nice to meet you. Yes, you didn't add the end of it. Angels in Sin, Mayhem, Money, and Murder. Oh. And I'm always quick to say, I didn't murder anybody, but there was murder in the book, in my life, but I didn't do it.
Truly, when I have read some of these excerpts from the book, it doesn't feel like it's real, but it is. And it doesn't seem like you could even be alive today with even a tenth of what you've gone through and the places you've gone and the adventures you've had. Oh, and by the way, you also owned and ran a nightclub in New York City. Just like, oh, yes. That was just one of the many things on the list.
Dealing with the mafia. I don't know where that sounded like a good idea from the beginning, but it got even
Maybe
worse.
That should be in with Mayhem, Money, Murder, and the Mafia. But Angels in Sin is the book, and it tells your incredible story. Tell us, in a way that's going to reveal who you are as a person, which is not like anybody I don't think I've ever really met.
Well, I usually say that I jump off of the cliff without a net, and I say yes to all challenges, because you don't know if you can do something or not unless you try it. And if you do something and it doesn't work, like I usually say to people, pick up that pen off the desk. You either do it or you don't. Now, maybe you drop it because you try to pick it up from the point. And so do it a different way. And there's no such thing as failure in my life. It is a lesson in the classroom called life. And that's how I've lived my life. And it works.
So it started out, your life had just an unbelievable beginning to it. Did that have something to do with having a life full of adventure? And we are going to talk about some of the adventures that you've had in your life. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, my mother was a star on Broadway in I think the 20s. And she lied to me my whole life, which was something that was very painful. I didn't find out until after she passed away that she had lied to me. And after she passed away, and it was a number of years, I found some clippings, old clippings. And it talked about how she had run away from home at the age of 14, taken a $100 bill out of her mother's wallet and gone to New York City. And here I lived my life with my mother thinking that she couldn't write a check. And she was very childlike. And I realized afterwards, the reason she was childlike is because she lost her childhood. But she went there and she ended up in Jonathan Livingston's, she ended up in Earl Carroll's Vanities and Jonathan Livingston's Ziegfeld Follies. And she was involved with the Queen of the Night, who was Texas Guinan. She was a famous nightclub hostess. And my mom was starring in shows with Ethel Merman. I mean, and she kept all of this secret so that I thought she was older. I knew she was in Broadway, but I never ever dreamed that she ran away from home at 14.
Isn't that incredible? But some of the things that you have done are like, it makes you gasp when I think of some of the things. Just talk a little bit about the trips that you've taken, some of the daring episodes and things that you've actually done in your life, and then also accomplished, like you said, opening up a nightclub in New York City and dealing with the mafia, a beautiful woman, doing this at a time when who else was doing that but you?
Well, dealing with the mafia and winning is the important thing. Well, I've been on 7 safaris in 4 countries alone with only my unarmed Maasai guide. And so I've been to Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Botswana. Botswana. And so those were incredible experiences. And I go alone because I realized early on that I didn't want to have to deal with all these other people. They take a picture of an elephant, a picture of a hippo, a picture of a lion, and they say, well, you've seen one lion, you've seen them all. Not true. You've seen one lion, you've seen one lion. And each time you see a wild animal, it's a new experience. So I realized very early on, that I didn't want to go with anybody. And, but I've done things like I moved to Africa alone, not knowing, I'd never been to where I moved. I was 60 when I did it. And I just packed up and moved. And when I opened the nightclub, I had a successful fashion accessories business in Los Angeles that I built from nothing. I had a showroom at the California Mart, and I was making six figures in the 70s. And it was 1980. I was just getting a divorce from my second husband, and I had gone back to New York on business for Fashion Week. And it just happened to be a beautiful day. I mean, if it had been raining or snowing, it wouldn't have worked. I said, you know what? I want to move here. And it was that simple. I thought about it, walking down Fifth Avenue, got a newspaper, rented an apartment that day in Greenwich Village, 10th and University Place. And because I said, I'm not going to allow a business to rule my life. If I say, no, I don't want to move here because of the business, then the business is running my life. I'm not going to do it. And 10 weeks later, I was in my apartment in New York. And that was it. And so, I never looked back. And then when I needed money, I've always weighed things and said, for example, do I need the money more than I hate cold calling? And I said, I need the money more than I hate cold calling. I went to work on the stock exchange on Wall Street and did the thing I hated more than anything in the world is cold calling. And when people would hang up, this is funny because when people would hang up on me, I called because they put a card in and they wanted more information and they needed to invest like $5,000. So I'd call them and they'd hang up on me and I'd pick up the phone, call them back and say, I think we got disconnected. Now, where were we? At least I felt I got the last word.
And so how disparate are these different facets of your life? I mean, to go from the stock exchange to a nightclub ownership and then also wanting to, live in a foreign country at age 60. So you've got this sense of adventure like your mother, because any 14-year-old that takes off and heads to New York City back in the 1920s at age 14, you have to be wired a little bit differently or a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had at that time when I moved to New York, that was the first time I had this boyfriend and he was a little wacko. He came up with all these incredible ideas, but he never finished anything. And we were walking across Fifth Avenue and he said, I have an idea for a nightclub where anything can happen. And I said, that's it. That's what we're doing. And I went out, raised the money, quit the job on Wall Street because he couldn't get the club built. So I got it designed and everything else, got it built. And, the opening night, the club was very unusual. Opening night, we had celebrities like Andy Warhol, Grace Jones, Randy Jones from the Village People, the Pointer Sisters, Andrew Leon Talley from Vogue magazine. So there were 1,500 people opening night. Limousines stretched from it was on 27th between Park and Lexington.
Oh my
gosh. What I didn't know is that across the street over a restaurant was an illegal gambling club that was being run by, let us just say, one of the five family's lieutenant's son. And so here are all these limousines. They want anonymity. And so who knew? And so anyway, 1:30 in the morning, there's a banging on the door. It was set up with a butler answering the door. It was just very, very unusual. And so the butler answers the door. I happen to be upstairs in the living room, which is what the club was set up. And this kid is outside and he says, if you don't effing shut this club down, I'm going to blow it up. Welcome to the neighborhood. This was opening night. And so anyway, I'm like, what is going on here? And so long and short, it went on. I kept it going, and I just did smaller parties and things like that. And then there came a time where I was going to sell the club. I couldn't find a buyer. There were several buyers that were sent in by the powers that be. And anyway, I said, like I say all the time, there's a solution to every problem. And so they were like maybe a week away from taking the club because I had to close and rent. I had 42 employees. Rent was running off, all kinds of bills. And so I called somebody that I knew that had an illegal gambling club, but that had like people like Frank Sinatra and Jilly, and so really high level people. And he met with me. Long and short, he had somebody call me whose father and father-in-law were one of the 5 families. And so he came to the club. I looked around, called me back that night and said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. My father and father-in-law already have the club." Oops. So I just said to him, "Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your help, and I'm going to continue fighting in my own backyard." And 3 days later, he called me up. He offered me a job. He was so impressed with how I was dealing with things. I said, "Thank you very much, but I think I've had enough for right now." And so he said, "How much do you?" He said, He went to the elders because he was so impressed with me, and he said, "How much do you want for the club?" I told him. And I said, "I also want to walk away a stand-up guy. I'd been watching a lot of movies, and I said, I never want to have to look over my shoulder." And he said one word to me: "Done." He hung up. I never spoke to him again. I've never uttered his name. And 3 days later, lawyers called me for one of the sets of buyers that had walked away, and they actually were legitimate buyers. And they offered me that exact amount of money and bought the club. That was it. And I never worried. I said, I never worried because that's what he said to me.
Oh, my gosh. My guest is Georgene Summers. She has a book called Angels in Sin, Mayhem, Money, and Murder. And it's so many different aspects of your life. And you have so many people that have given you great acclaim for the book and said, there is no way that this all can be true with this one woman. And yet it is. It plays like a movie. There's a movie just itching to be made based on your life story. Do you have anybody that is going, because I have a feeling this will be turned into something, an episodic or a film. Are you working on that?
Yes, because I had an award-winning screenwriter who said he conferred with friends and colleagues and said, it's too much for a movie. Let's do a television series. And so, it was right around the time he did an initial script for a television series. And so I'm really optimistic because a lot of people have said the same thing. This is a movie or a television series because I have had an amazing life.
I'm wondering who would play you, Georgene, because
it's me.
You know what? Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I hope you have done the audiobook to your book, Angels in Sin, because you have to do the voice. You have to be the voice.
I haven't done the audio yet, but it's a work in progress. And so I want to get it done. And good. So, it's there's so much.
There is so much. I literally would have to have you back on every single week for the rest of the year to get all of the incredible stories and different experiences that you've had, and the history too of your family as well. But we can't do that right now. But because you are a transformational coach and you do motivational speaking as well, and one-on-one coaching, and you've written books on dating and love and the whole thing, what would in a minute or two, would you say, because you have lived this life so authentically that you write about, it was you in all of the scenarios, what would you tell people is kind of the great nugget of life that you have learned through all I don't know how old you are. You look completely ageless to me. But if you moved to Africa when you were 60 and you're not there any longer, I mean, you have a lifetime of beautiful things. What would you tell people that want to have a life that is more than just, getting through the day and then you die kind of thing?
I think the first thing is that people have to stop saying no because the little voice in their head says no. So they retreat from challenges. And so, and I've done things just the opposite. And I mean, I wish we had more time because I would tell you one experience that was mind blowing. But they need to get rid of the fears that are preventing them from living their life to the fullest, from reaching their highest potential for growth and greatness and realizing their dreams. And quickly, I mean, I'll tell you just a quick little story that there was a girl that I met several years ago in a medical office. She was working there, a young girl. We just started talking. I was waiting for the doctor, and they're always late, you know. And so we started chatting, and I told her about my safaris. And she said, "Oh, my God, I would love to do that." I said, "Well, why don't you?" She said, "Oh, I'm too afraid." I said, "What are you afraid of?" And she looked right at me and she said, "Tourists get eaten all the time." I said, "Are you kidding me?" The only reason a tourist gets eaten is because they think they're at the zoo, they get out of the car and they try to pose with a lion. You don't do that. And so, but people, they listen to her and people listen to other people. And what I find is people say, "Oh, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go on safari. You don't want to go to China. You don't want to do the fire walk." And then you say to them, "Well, have you ever done it? Have you ever been to China? Have you ever gone on the safari?" No. So where are you getting your information from? You're speaking from fear that maybe you got from somebody else. Don't do that. Get rid of them. You don't know if you can do something or not until you try. And so what if you have to do it a different way and another way and another way? You learn. I mean, I learned how to design handbags after I opened my mouth and said, "This looks like it was designed by a blind person. I could do a better job than that. I didn't know the difference between a gusset and a grommet." And then I got sabotaged. But I learned, now I know, and I wouldn't have known anything if I hadn't jumped in.
It's really amazing, and it's incredibly inspirational. And so grateful you're here today. You must promise me you'll come back, Georgine.
I swear. I'm coming back.
You're so good. Great. You heard it right here. She's coming back. Georgine Summers is the author of the book, Angels in Sin, Mayhem, Money, and Murder, and so much more. The absolute heroine of adventure that you are. I'm so grateful that you're here today, and you are an absolute gem. I think so many people, you have to write 10 more books of just fabulous stories and advice and everything else. It's remarkable. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy and a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, I'm completely mesmerized and inspired. Again, Georgine Summers, and the book is Angels in Sin, Mayhem, Money, and Murder. Buy it wherever fine books are sold.
You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Once again, here's Laura.
Well, little did I know, but on October 8th, 1935, the height of the Great Depression, 9 United States Senate employees pooled their resources and chartered what was called the United States Senate Employees Federal Credit Union, which is a long one, with just $45. Imagine that. Wow. Well, their goal was to provide quality financial services to workers throughout the Senate. And here to tell us all about that, which I did not know about, is Timothy Anderson. He is the president and CEO of the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. Happy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you for having me. And I've kind of heard that story that there are others that say we didn't know about the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. So we've got to do a better job of telling our story. But the credit union was founded back in 1935. 9 United States Senate employees, including Laura, one senator, started the United States Senate Federal Credit Union by pooling their resources together, $5 each for a total of $45. And I often say we were born out of the Great Depression. So the credit union was founded then. And the reason for the credit union starting, these 9 United States Senate employees saw a need during tough times. It was right during the Great Depression that federal workers needed affordable financial services. And so they pooled their resources together and the credit union began.
And so, I mean, I'm thinking about it back then that was a big deal. $45. What would that be worth in today's dollar?
Well, I can tell you this, $45, very humbling, start there with $45. But right now we're just under 1.6 billion. So just think about that. We've grown exponentially, and that $45 today has grown to just under 1.6 billion in assets.
That's pretty amazing. So who then is eligible to take part in this? Is it just for senators, or is it just that in the name only and it's available to other people?
And Laura, I love fielding that question because I think that's one of the things, again, we have to tell our story better. Anybody in the country can join the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. We serve right now 140 groups, including the Senate. That's where it all started. The Capitol Police, the architect of the Capitol, the Supreme Court, and the Government Accounting Office. But anyone in the entire country, and we have members around the country. We have members around the world. Right now, we have 55,000 members. We're in all 50 states around the country and also around the world. And anybody can be a member. So right now, and just in general with credit union, there are over 142 million credit union members. And we have just north of 330 million people in the country. So that's a big number, 142 million members being a part of the credit union. And we've expanded and we've gathered and gained additional membership by opening up to everyone around the country.
So for people like me who really don't understand the big between a credit union and a bank, what is it?
Yeah, great question there. And it all starts with the model. So our cooperative model. Banks are for profit. Famed economist Milton Friedman, and I often quote this, he once said, the sole responsibility of a for-profit organization is to make money for its shareholders, to pad their pockets. It's not social responsibility. It's not community involvement. At the credit union, we don't have shareholders. We're not for profit. So it's that cooperative model that's the biggest difference. Our members, Laura, own the credit union. So in turn, when we make money, we can take that and give it right back to the members in terms of better rates. On the deposit side, you get higher deposit rates generally lower loan rates and lower fees. And one of the things I often point out in the fee category, in checking accounts where if you overdraft an account, you'll get a NSF, non-sufficient fund charge. $45, sometimes $40. Here at the credit union, we don't have that fee. So we're able, because of our model, because of that cooperative, not-for-profit, we're able in turn to give that back to our members. And we did away with that fee.
Wow. That's huge, especially in this day and age right now. It's tough times for a lot of people. And, all it takes is getting that overdraft fee. And instead of, stopping you from doing it again, it kind of puts you into a hole. It could be really a spiral downward battle. So are you saying that in addition to those fees, you said that the loan rates are lower? Like, give me an example.
Yeah, for auto loan rates. Right now, if you go to our website, you could see we have a tiered structure, but you can get an new auto loan rate for 4%. On the deposit side, there was one point back in 2018, Laura, the 2018 timeframe, we actually were offering the highest deposit, 5-year deposit rate, certificate of deposit rate in the country. The highest. And just over the years, our rates have been very well matched up against banks and credit unions across the country. So in general, you'll find that the credit unions pay more on deposits and generally loan rates.
How about like mortgages? Do they help with that?
Absolutely. Same thing. Any loan that you can get from a bank, you can get from a credit union. And during the time of the low interest rate environment, now, obviously, the Fed has moved and rates are beginning to creep back up. The Fed last time out raised the rate 25 basis points. But during that real low rate environment, our members were refinancing their mortgage loans, because they were getting real good rates. I mean, when you can get 2%, you can get 3%. I mean, that's kind of like historically low. And we served a lot of members with mortgages, refinancing, and getting new mortgages right here at the credit union.
So do people who have other bank accounts and such, would they benefit from also opening up an account at the USSFCU?
Absolutely. And I encourage it. I encourage it because obviously you can have multiple accounts. You can, if you want to stay with a bank, you can. But hopefully I've said enough to your audience where they could see some of the differences. I know we don't have much time, but yeah, you can have multiple accounts. And I would encourage customers on the banking side to explore that, because oftentimes credit unions, as I mentioned earlier, just need to do a better job of telling the story. Because when you compare, if you compare, you'll see on the credit union side, you'll have better benefits.
That's exciting. And I know that the United States Senate Federal Credit Union also has a foundation that it has started. What is that foundation and what does it go towards?
Yeah, and thanks for asking that question, Laura. So we're very proud. We just launched the foundation this year in 2025. And as I mentioned earlier, we believe here at the Credit Union, United States Senate Federal Credit Union, that everyone should have access to financial services, affordable financial services. Through our foundation, we're putting that to work. So we're providing financial literacy and financial education and different wellness resources. We believe that you start early in schools. So we have a community focus starting with the youth and the school, teaching through this foundation, teaching financial literacy, education, teaching them about banking services. Overall, we just believe that we should be improving the livelihood for those who are most economically challenged, and we're able to do that through our foundation.
And when you're younger, you have a lot better chance of being more fiscally responsible, I think, as you get older. Boy, do I wish I had some of the training that you offer there. What is a good way for us to get in touch, get more information, and maybe even open an account with United States Senate Federal Credit Union?
Absolutely. You can reach us on our website at www.ussfcu.org. We also have social media channels. You can do a search at USSFCU, and also our podcast. You can do a search at USSFCU as well. USSFCU. Timothy Anderson, thank you so much. Today was a real eye-opener, and I'm going to look into this myself. My pleasure. We'd love to have you. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening to The Way Home this week, and to my wonderful guests. And may you all have a wonderful week that is safe, that's happy, healthy, and full of lots of miracles as well. I'm Laura Smith. See you next time from The Way Home.
Podcasts by Federated Media.